This week on Five-Dot-Nerds, as you may have noticed, we're discussing our favorite authors. And I'm going to do something kind of crazy and break precedent and not talk about Neil Gaiman. The quote you saw in the beginning is by a Canadian author named Margaret Atwood. Margaret Atwood is an amazingly prolific author. She's written, I think, 14 novels, 15 collections of poetry, and 10 short story collections. Not only is Margaret Atwood amazingly prolific, but she's also amazingly diverse. I first encountered Margaret Atwood my sophomore year of high school, I believe, and Alias Grace was on the list of books that we had to read. Picked it up, read it, enjoyed it. Didn't really think much about it because, you read books for school and you just don't worry about them. Several years later, I was in a used bookstore and I picked up a book because I was interested in the cover mostly, and that book was The Handmaid's Tale. That book is probably single-handedly responsible for getting me back into science fiction. Growing up, my parents had friends who would let me take books from them, and they were all sort of pulp, 1960s science fiction novels with the girl with the large breasts and the lizard men and then going into space and getting captured. After a while, I kind of reached my threshold of large-breasted lizard women who get captured and decided I wasn't really interested in science fiction. And then the book The Handmaid's Tale took science fiction in a different direction. Now, Margaret Atwood in the past has said that the book The Handmaid's Tale and my favorite book of hers, Oryx and Crake, were not science fiction. She insisted that they were speculative fiction, and that the difference was that science fiction was filled with saucers and squids talking in space and things, and speculative fiction could actually happen. Now, as we all know, since we live in the future, a lot of science fiction can actually happen as well. And she has since recanted that and said that she does sometimes write science fiction, and that you can classify those two novels as science fiction, but I think it's important to note the differences. Along with writing books that are insightful and have narratives that are speculative in nature and ultimately kind of disturbing and amazing, she does something else really well that a lot of authors don't do, which is blending stories. She has a novel called The Blind Assassin, which is actually 3 novels in one. It's the story of the blind assassin. It's the story of the author writing The Blind Assassin. And it's the story of a girl who has grown up, and it's kind of just her life. And in the end, they all weave together in a beautiful way. And I know that in the hands of another author, that might not have been done so well. And that's one of the reasons that I love Margaret Atwood so much, is that she is able to find the threads and stories that will bring out the humanity in them and just run with them. It's something I aspire to be as an author. I do encourage you, whether you like science fiction, whether you like romance, whether you like a little bit more action, to pick up a Margaret Atwood novel. There's a reason that I read Alias Grace and then 2 years later read The Handmaid's Tale and didn't realize they were by the same author. It's because she gets inside her characters and she doesn't write the same books over and over. She really breaks genre the way that a lot of authors can't. Have a good weekend, nerds, and I'll see you next week.